Okay, so today what's going to happen is we're going to get started with the idea of solving multi-step equations and understanding why we do the things that we do. So this is legal moves in algebra. And today is the 8th. Okay, so legal moves in algebra. Basically what this is the different types of steps you can do in math to solve an algebraic equation. We can't just make up our own math and do whatever we want, so there are only specific things that we can do. So the first thing is we can simplify. So simplifying. And kind of what does simplifying mean? So the different ways we could simplify is to distribute.
Miss Shaw?
Yeah.
Maddie texted me and said she's in the waiting room, so I don't know if you can see it. Like,
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. So simplifying. One of the first things we could do is distribute. We could combine like terms. We could eliminate zero pairs. And regardless of whatever we do here, the most important thing is that it does not affect the overall value. So when you simplify, it does not affect its overall value. So that's one of the first things we can do is simplify. The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that there is balance. So the equal sign means the same as. So whenever we're solving an equation, we're saying that this side is the same as the other side. And so if we do something to one side, we need to make sure we do it to the other side to keep them equal or the same. So to balance an equation means that something is done to both sides equally. And I'm sure you've heard other teachers say, whatever you do to one, you got to do to the other. So again, we're looking at the equal sign and how it represents two things being equal or the same as. And so whatever we do, we need to keep our equation balanced. The next property is the addition property. Of equality. Addition property of equality. So our example here would be like x minus 5 equals 6. So addition property of equality would be basically, how do we go about solving this? We need to isolate the x. In order to isolate the x, we need to do the inverse of minus 5 or negative 5, which would be adding 5. So essentially it could look like this. X minus 5 plus 5 is equal to 6 plus 5. Okay, right here, this plus 5 is the addition property of equality. I could also write it like this. Either way is okay. Now, when I use the addition property of equality, what happens is I end up with a 0 pair. So this creates a 0 pair. And I'm left with x equals 11. Over here, this is my 0 pair, and I'm left with x equals 11. There is the addition property of equality. So the next property we would have is the subtraction property of equality. And the reason we say of equality is because we're trying to keep everything equal on both sides. So whatever we do to one side, we balance it. We do the same to the other side. X plus 3 equals 1. So subtraction property would be the inverse of a positive number in my equation. So if I have x plus 3 equals 1, minus 3 minus 3, that is the subtraction property of equality. Or I could have x plus 3 minus 3 is equal to 1 minus 3. This is the same thing as the subtraction property of equality. Again, I'm going to just go ahead and put that in a parenthesis so we know what we're doing here. That looks like I'm multiplying though, so I should probably fix that. Minus 3. And from here, what I need to do is identify my 0 pair. 0 pair, I have x equals negative 2. 0 pair, I have x equals negative 2. Subtraction property of equality. Okay, my next one is multiplication property of equality. And my example here is a half x equals 10. Now, some of you might be looking at this and thinking to yourself, this is not the multiplication property of equality, because the last two examples she did, we were doing the inverse, and there's already multiplication happening here. Although that is true, because this is a fraction being multiplied, I use multiplication for the inverse of this instead of division. So if I have a half x equals 10, I'm going to use the multiplication property of equality because I'm going to multiply this by the inverse. So I'm going to multiply this by 2 over 1, and I'm going to multiply this side by 2 over 1. So I'm using multiplication here in order to isolate x. Now when I do that, I get 2 times 1, which is 2, and 2 times 1, which is 2. X is equal to, this is 20 over 1. Anytime I have a fraction where the numerator and denominator are the same, it creates one whole. So I'm left with 1 times x, which is x. And then anytime I have a number over 1, that means that it's actually a whole number. So I have 20 here. So that would be what my answer is. And then the last property I have here is the division property. Of equality. And the example I have here is 3x equals 9. So this is the division property of equality. The reason why is because I have a multiplication problem here. So the inverse would be dividing. So if I have 3x equals 9, I need to divide by 3, divide by 3. When I do that, I now have a numerator and denominator that match, which really creates one whole. 1 times x is x, and then I have 9 divided by 3, which is 3, and there you have it. So that is the division property of equality. Now, the reason we're doing this is to be able to identify that what we're doing in order to solve an equation makes sense. It follows the mathematical rules, and we understand what we're doing. So here's example 1. I have this equation, 5x plus 4 minus x equals 2 times the quantity of x minus 1. Okay, so the first thing we should do is we should always rewrite our problem. You never want to use your original problem when solving, because then you can't go back and double check what the original problem was. So I'm going to rewrite my problem here, which was 5x plus 4 minus x equals 2 parenthesis x minus 1. And then over here, I'm going to give the justification or the math behind what I'm doing. So I would just write given, because this is the original problem, so it was given to me. Like I didn't do anything yet. The first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to look inside my parentheses. When I look here, I think, can I simplify this? No, they're not like terms. So now I need to come up with the next thing that I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to combine like terms on this side. So I'm going to combine my x's. So I have 5x minus x. When I combine those, I end up with 4x, and then I rewrite the rest of my problem. Plus 4 is equal to 2 parenthesis x minus 1. And this over here is going to be combine like terms, which is the same thing as simplify. Okay, combining like terms is just the specific thing we did. Simplifying is kind of a broader thing. Now I'm going to look again for the next action that I want to do. And again, this is another simplification. I'm going to want to distribute this 2. The 2 is touching the parentheses, so it means to multiply. So I have 4x plus 4. I'm just rewriting that because I'm not changing it. 2 times x makes 2x, and 2 times negative 1 makes negative 2. And this was distribute. Which is simplify. Okay. Now I'm going to want to get all of my variables to one side and all of my constants to the other. So let's go ahead and just move my constants. I'm going to take this 4 and I'm going to move it over here. So in order to move it, I need to use the inverse operation. This is a positive 4. So the inverse would be what? Who can tell me? Just go ahead and come off of mute.
Negative 4.
Great. So negative 4, negative 4. Okay. What property is this?
The subtraction property of equality.
Great. Subtraction property of equality. This makes my 0 pair. So now I'm left with 4x is equal to 2x minus 6. Okay. Now I need to get my variables on one side. So I need this 2x to move over here. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. The property that I used here was the subtraction property. Of equality. That made a 0 pair again. I'm left with 2x equals -6. Okay, from here I have touching. Touching means to multiply, so I'm going to need to do the inverse, which would be to, who can tell me?
Divide.
Excellent. Divide by 2, divide by 2. This is now the division property of equality. 2 over 2 is the same thing as 1. X equals -3. Box that. And there is my solution. And then, of course, anytime we solve an equation, we need to go back and we need to check that what we've done is correct. So I'm going to run out of room, which means I have to turn the page. You do not have to turn the page if yours will fit, but I write large, so I know that I needed to. So here's my check. I have x is equal to -3. My original problem, which was 5x plus 4 minus x, is equal to 2 times the quantity of x minus 1. Okay, and then from here, the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this equation, but substitute -3 for x. So I have 5 times -3 plus 4 minus -3 is equal to 2 times -3 minus 1. Now, anytime I substitute for x, I always put it in a parenthesis. That way I can hold the problem true to what it originally stated. In our order of operations, the first thing that I should be solving here is my parentheses, and not solving but simplifying. So that's the first step, which means I'm going to rewrite everything else. 5 times -3 plus 4 minus -3 is equal to 2 times, this is a -3 minus 1, which makes -4. Now the next thing I need to do in this process is multiplication. So I have 5 times -3, that makes -15, plus 4 minus -3, which is equal to, that makes -8. Okay, after I do that, I need to continue on this side simplifying. So I have -15 plus 4, and this is minus -3, which makes it plus 3 is equal to -8. And from here, I'm just going to continue to simplify this left-hand side. I'm going to combine my positives first. So I have -15 plus this right here makes 7 is equal to -8. Then here I have -8 is equal to -8, and I know that I'm correct. And there you have it. We have now just checked that our equation holds true. So what you are going to do is you are going to try this on your own. Here's a do now. And the problem you are going to do by yourself is 4 plus 3 times the quantity of 2x minus 1 is equal to -2 plus x minus 12. Okay, there's your do now.